Hello, everybody, and welcome to something brand new out of the umbrella family that is the Mic Drop. This is a new segment that we are entitling Mike's Drops. The reason why it's different than the Mic Drop is because this is going to be predominantly informationally presented as opposed to conversationally discussed, which is what I want to evolve the Mic Drop itself into as an actual Twitch stream where we get to talk about stuff live. This is going to be more of like my experiences from the time that I was employed at Middlebury Community Schools, because a lot of people just keep asking, dude, what happened? Like, we had no idea. Like, what else is going on? Like, seriously. So, Mike's Drops are going to be intended to be just little drops of wisdom and knowledge that you can take from my experience while I worked at Middlebury Community Schools. Okay? It's a little bit different because I am. There's the only purpose in this is just explanation. There's no discussion. There's no call to action. It's just it's information. Now, if this promotes fantastic discussions that lead into things that we want to talk about on the Mic Drop, heck yeah, dude, let's go. I'm all for it. But for the purposes of this is going to be very specific information that I'm going to present to you guys that was the truth of my experience that I'm going to let you make your own decisions about and decide if you want to do anything about. That's the whole purpose of this. So watch them if you want. They're probably intentionally going to be a little bit shorter just to kind of give you the premise of what happened with me, and then if that leads into a greater discussion of what's happened with a bunch of people, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm not afraid to go ahead and talk about that. But today's first of Mike's Drops, and the first Mike's Drop that we are going to talk about today is a big one, because I really don't have any fear. Again, you guys already know why I'm saying this, but today we're going to talk about my experience working with Dr. Robby Goodman. Dr. Robby Goodman was the most recently assistant superintendent at Middlebury Community Schools not too long ago. I believe that he has since left the corporation and now works as a principal at a different school. And the reason I'm going to talk to you about my experience with him is because of two different things that had happened directly to me, kind of. It involved me eventually, and so those are the ones I'm going to speak from. Okay? So, for those of you guys that don't know Dr. Robby Goodman, he was the principal at the middle school for quite a while. He's a family man. He's got two children. One of which was an awesome competitive cheerleader on the cheer squad, and the other one he's one of the funniest guys I've ever talked to. Like, he just has such a great sense of humor. He's a really good man, and he would tell you that almost routinely, and it's like the most hilarious dad joke ever. I love him. When it comes to Dr. Robby Goodman himself, I originally thought that this man was an advocate for like us as counselors, an advocate for kids, an advocate for doing things differently. I didn't really invest much into getting to know people's core at that time. I just kind of took people at face value, inherently believing in the goodness of others. Found out when it comes to Middlebury entitlement schools, you probably may not want to do that, based in my experience. So when it comes to Dr. Goodman, there's two things that happened that I wanted to share with you guys that would maybe put a drop in the pond of, is how corrupt is Middlebury Community Schools, or how corrupt has Middlebury Community Schools been up to this point, and why are we just now hearing about it, and why have we not heard about it before? Because political bodies like to protect their image when they do something wrong. So do you guys. I'm not gonna lie, humanity, you do something wrong since we were children. You do something wrong you don't want to get caught for, you do everything in your power to try to hide it from mom or dad or whoever else is watching that could get you in trouble. It's basic human nature to not want to get in trouble for things that you've done something wrong or poorly. However, because we are human with hearts and we matter and we breathe and we should care about others, accountability is a thing. The first one I'm going to talk to you about happened, and it did not involve me directly until later. There was a time during COVID that right as we were kind of coming out of it, we were trying to figure out how many people we could have live at like a basketball, I think it's COVID, I mean, you could have 25%, you could have 50%, you could have a pep band, you couldn't have a pep band, you could have cheerleaders, you couldn't have cheerleaders. It changed daily based on what was going on with CDC recommendations, and rightfully so. We were always trying to protect our kids, so I'm not knocking that. What I am going to say is, during that time, there was something that the school counseling department was trying to do. That was later on. That came after this event. And the reason why it didn't involve me is because it involved the athletic department and the cheerleading squad. And that involves me adjacent, because as the pep band director, my purview is over the kids with the instruments and how we cheer for the kids at the events. But routinely, when you have someone who is loud and a leader and is vehemently voicing their support for your home team, people tend to gravitate towards that voice. And I've led and been asked to lead the entire cheer block at certain games, and same thing with coordination with the cheerleaders, which is kind of how all this ties in, because of Dr. Goodman's daughter. During her senior year, what I was told was that during the auditions for varsity and junior varsity for the cheer squad that year, that Dr. Goodman's daughter did not have the best audition. That's all I was told. I don't know if that's truth or not. That's just what I was told. But the result of that was that there was a chance she may not make it onto the varsity squad, and that apparently didn't sit well with Dr. Robby Goodman, because he made one of the most, I'm going to say, disgusting abuses of power that I would have seen come out of an administration for the damage it could do to kids. And he decided that since that was the case, that there was not going to be a varsity cheer squad that year. In fact, all the cheerleaders were going to be varsity that year. There was a one varsity squad, and it was hidden under this little environment of like, well, we don't know if we're going to do with COVID, so, we can take some, we can take not. Why don't we just put everybody on the same team and take what we can when we can, and yada yada. You're smarter than that. I know you are, because you're here listening. You're questioning things. You're smarter than that. Make your own conclusions. Ask those questions, because here's the questions I asked. When my students that are assigned to me, and some that weren't, came to my office crying because they had fought and auditioned and stayed up countless nights trying to perfect their routine so they can make it onto varsity, only to fight a very fierce competition to get onto varsity, because the cheerleaders at Middlebury Community Schools are dynamite. They're like I'm their biggest fan and they're my biggest fan. Like, we are reciprocal fans towards, like, when it comes to cheer. I've been led by them, they've been led by me, and I would do it all over in a heartbeat. But when it comes down to this decision, they were broken-hearted. And I didn't understand what had happened. So I went and I asked the athletic director at the time, which was Dave Harms. Where I was working at in Middlebury Community Schools at the high school, my office was actually right next to Dave Harms, and he's the athletic director. So Dave is a consummate professional and a passionate athletic educator. Someone that definitely has my respect, because what had transpired with all this was a hand-me-down decision from above to change your program because I said so. And I could tell that it really, really hit Dave hard, not because he told me, because he's too professional, but because I'm empathic and I watch people, and I have a degree in psychology, and I can see when people's mannerisms change and when people are sad. I would hope that you would want me to be trained to know when people are upset or not themselves, considering I work with teenage children. It's probably a good talent to have. Dave started to brood. And if you know anything about Dave Harms, he's arguably the most positive person that could exist in the corporation other than Jane Allen before I ever showed up. Tremendous respect for him. And he was just brooding, like he was sad about something, but he was trying to be happy still. And he never told me what was going on. He never said a word. I didn't hear anything about. I respected Dave too much to pry because he respected me enough to know the only reason I was asking was because the girls were crying in my office, like they were upset over it. I'm not a pot stirrer. I'm protecting kids. So he would just kind of smile and say, "It's going to be all right, baby." And that, knowing Dave Harms, you don't question that. But I could feel it. It doesn't matter if there was solid titanium between he and I. When you're empathic, you can generally feel the emotions of those around you. And even if you are the slightest bit empathic, you can tell when there's just a little bit of vibrational difference in somebody's aura, in who they are, and how they are. You can tell that if you get to know somebody when they show up and you say hi and they say hi, and if their hi is different than they said yesterday, you go, "Hey, you alright?" Human love, right? Crazy. Everywhere. As a result of his overuse and executive use of power, a lot of the girls on the cheer squad were just, they didn't know what to do. Between their support of Dr. Goodman's daughter and her, innate, awesome athleticness and wanting her to be on the squad, and just, supporting those that rightfully trained to get their spots on the squad. I mean, it was just a big mess. So much so that I remember that Jane Allen went to talk to the cheerleaders at some point. And if you know Jane Allen, you know her heart is bigger than anybody's. So if she's going to go and talk to the cheerleaders, then there's a concern there. And she wants to make sure that they're okay. I went out there and talked with the cheerleaders after I heard about all this. I was invited by the coach because I'm a pillar of pep. Somebody called me a pop, pillar of pep. So bad things happen and we still need to do our jobs. Like, here's the thing. As a pep band director, I don't get to have a sick day. If I'm having a bad day, you don't get to know it. I am literally there to put on a show of entertainment for you guys. And it's always genuine out of my heart because I want to entertain and I want the kids to be happy. But at the same time, some days you're just a little off. So that happened. And last I checked, Dave Harms retired. And it could be a coincidence, could be not. Just stating a fact. But I can tell you from my personal experience that Dave Harms was never the same after that. If I'm exaggerating any part of it whatsoever, it would be the fact that Dave was hurt. I could feel that. I don't want to speak for him because I'm not trying to do that. From what I felt, from my experience, from my truth, he was just hurt. And I don't think he recovered from that. I think that was a betrayal of the utmost highest order, and I don't think he ever recovered from it. In fact, the principal, Mr. Drew Wood, told me directly to my face after all this debacle had transpired that he no longer trusts Dr. Robby Goodman. He can't trust him to do what he thinks is best for the high school now because of what he chose to do selfishly. And here's something you don't know. Here's the tea, if it were. During that time, Dr. Robby Goodman also apparently caught COVID and was put on, he was gone for about 4 weeks while he was COVIDed. This is what was told to us and was also his out-of-office response to the emails that we were sending. And then I come to find out, I'm not going to tell you who told me, because it doesn't matter who told me if it's true. Go and find out if it's true or not. I was told that Dr. Goodman was placed on administrative leave, unpaid for a month, for his abuse of power. And it was hidden under the guise that he had COVID. So if I'm lying, if I'm saying stuff that is untrue that could get me in trouble with the law, prove me wrong. I'll admit it. Go and show me all of the things that say that I'm wrong in this, and I'll freely admit, like, hey, I was wrong. I made a judgment call that was wrong on this, and I've grown since to. I'll do that. I've got no problem doing that. But when you ask, if you are going to ask, if that's actually the case, if that's true, watch whom you ask. Do they say to you, no, that's completely insane. There's no way that that actually happened. Do you believe them? Or look at them, and if they say, we're not actually able to talk about more than that. It's kind of a, sensitive issue classified in the past. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's where all your secrets go that you don't want to talk about. I get that. We're asking you to talk about them now, so that's not going to be good enough. Just watch their response. Come up with your own conclusions. Okay? The second thing that happened with Dr. Goodman happened to me directly. And this came out of a plea for help during the last semester that I worked at Middlebury Community Schools, when I was at the peak of my anxiety and depression and feeling just absolutely awful. We were, as a school corporation, trying to ramp. Ramp is a term that means that your school counseling program fits with the ASCA national model, the American School Counseling Association. You are a ready school to go ahead and do that. And as a result of what we were doing with the trainings for Hatch over the course of those years, we were hoping to get to a point where we could ramp. After all the tragedy and stuff that happened to me during the time of, all of it, when I came back after the semester that I had taken off to try and deal with the trauma of everything that was happening to me and my family, I came back, and this is the time I was presented with the new norms, where I could only walk out of one office door, where it was illegal to basically fart in the wrong direction, all different kinds of stuff, which you heard talk to me about in the mic drop. This kind of came around that same time. And we had wanted to ramp a couple of years ago, and we couldn't because of the pandemic. We wanted to ramp the year before, and we couldn't because of the pandemic. And now I went and asked, the beginning of this year, when we had our first counselors meeting as a corporation, and my team was really, really insistent on the fact that we were going to ramp this year. And in order to be able to ramp, it takes a lot more than what you would normally do in your job, as far as like stuff you got to record, stuff you got to write down, stuff you got to submit to the actual establishment in order to get the credential. So there's just a lot of extra work, and it's good work. Like, I'm not saying that the work itself is bad. I love ASCA and I love the ramp. And ramp schools, it's the way in which it was handled. I feel like I'm always representative of like the at-risk population at Middlebury Community Schools, because it's like, I feel like what their experience is like, well, it seemed like 90% of the people agreed to do it this way, because I was one of the 10% that was different. I got shunned and pretended like I didn't exist. Of the 5 counselors that were on the team at the time, I was representative of 20% of the counseling population. And I, too, felt like you. Because I didn't agree with the majority in the way that things were supposed to go. I was literally either ridiculed or just led to feel like my ideas were stupid or without merit or immature or all kinds of different stuff. But in this particular instance, I was apprehensive about coming back to work from the tragedies and stuff that I had overcome, to get back to a place where I could do the job as a school counselor the way that I wanted to be able to do it. And then there was going to be all this on top. And so I just asked a question. After the meeting, I asked Dr. Robby Goodman privately in his office, and I just wanted to ask. I said, Robby, can you just tell me, like, this year, everything that happened to me at the end of last year, and I'm coming back this year and doing my best to get back onto my A game and that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, tell me what's going on. I said, do we have to ramp this year? Like, do we actually have to ramp this year? I know we had told Lily and that we were going to attempt to, but we've postponed it, a couple of times already because of the pandemic, and the pandemic doesn't really seem to be going away yet, as to a degree. So do we have to do it this year? That was just my question. And you know what he told me? He said to me, he goes, well, Mike, honestly, I don't know. I know we'd like to. I don't understand the push for it to be done so quickly now, but I do know that we have, we've told people that it needs to get done. So he asked me how I could help. And I just asked him, I said, if there's any way that we could, either do the ramping thing either a little bit later, or if the other counselor is in a place where they're not having to catch up from being out for a semester and they're ready to go and they're ready to ramp, go for it. And whatever they would need me to do along the way, I would do my best as a secondary to my primary job as a school counselor. That doesn't exist in the minds of those who think that everything that comes out of their mouth is a priority. So after this, I felt a little bit more relieved. I felt like, Dr. Goodman was maybe going to talk with Summer Runyon and the counselors and maybe Mr. Wood and just kind of say, okay, let's ease up a little bit on ramping this year. Let's get it set up still like we've been doing. Let's put these things into practice. Or if we can make this fly, with, giving some grace to Malhan as he's coming back in and, worked really hard to get back to a place where he can, do the job again. Something compassionate, something understanding. Because we're a community school corporation. We pride ourselves on supporting the families. And my family was going through a lot of trauma at the time. Like my house burned down and we had to relocate. And it's just a bunch of craziness. So I tell you all that to say this, because you're wondering, okay, what did he do? What I found out afterward was the minute that I left that meeting, he reached out to whomever he needed to reach out to and basically made ramping mandatory for that year, or else the counseling department was going to be in trouble. Like, oh no, we pushed this off long enough. It is time that we go through with what we said we were going to do. No more extensions. Hey, you're the corporation. You run it. You're good. I don't question that. I'm just trying to figure out how to do best by kids. He told whoever he needed to tell that if we don't ramp this year, then something terrible, like it's just going to be bad. Like I'm going to get fired or something egregious like that. But I didn't find that out until much afterward. That after I had an earnest discussion with him about asking for some help, some grace, a little bit of understanding as I come back and work my way back from tragedy to a place where I've finally gotten, well enough to work with the kids again, to put all that on top, he made a decision to make it so that not only is it adjacent, it's on top, and if you don't, it's the end of the world. And that's the tactics that they use when they want someone to leave. Oh, you're not able to keep up, huh? Okay, well, maybe there's somebody else that could be doing a better job. The fact that Dr. Goodman heard me, literally a plea from my heart for help during this time, and he chose to go and say, make ramp happen no matter what, shows me a lot about the character of the man on when he wants to get rid of someone. And I'm going to ask this question out there too. I don't know if anybody has asked since in the past couple years, did Northridge High School ever ramp? Did they ever become an ASCA model school like they were, like I was told was law during the last semester that I worked there? Because I haven't seen any publications where they've been ramped. What happened? Why was it such a priority when I needed a little bit of grace and now it's not there? Question marks abound, right? So, there you go. That was Mike's first drop of experience into a pool of your shared wisdom so that you can make whatever choices you want to make out of it. And I will say this clearly so that I don't have to get, subpoenaed, or you don't have to waste time sending me letters or anything like that when it comes to lawyers and stuff. Everything that I just told you, I would hand a Bible, say to God in a courtroom, and I would beg that you take me to court so that I can say it loudly to others who will listen to. A jury of my peers, a judge, I'm sure, that also may or may not have kids in the school corporation, an entire body of audience members filled up by the community that is divided on what it is that you, like, I'm just telling y'all right now, I'm not afraid, and I'm not hiding. You want to look at what hiding looks like? Look at Middlebury Community Schools, where they've made it so anyone who tells the truth is banned, canceled, cannot tell the truth anymore, or arrested on sight. What are you afraid of? That's a different for another story. This is the end of Mike's first drop. I plan to continue to do these a lot so that you guys can have some of the experience that I had in informing your own decisions going forward, which is the whole point of all this. Make the best choices you need for your children and your families. Children graduates, recent graduates, make the choices for your future children on what school you would want to go to based on actual truths of what's going on instead of portrayed truths on what people want you to believe. That's all I got to say on this mic drop. So thank you for listening. It's going to be fun, and I look forward to seeing you again for the next one. Peace.